Yes, yes,
Yes.
frankly, Aaron is. Yeah, I know.
My old daughter is.
I don't know, I've not been contacted. I, for instance, she do water quality testing periodically. And I've never seen. If there's anything they want to do.
I get to.
Yeah, I mean, I know it,
So my daughter.
I thought all of that. But,
She,
it was last year.
and she got pretty great.
It was in the fall. The morning. Well,
He went up to
again, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll.
Sorry, it's technical. I mean, frankly. Okay, that's fine. No, sorry. No.
I think we got it down so good and you.
Oh.
Change over and go.
But as to say, I knew. Yeah, I knew.
I didn't. I don't like.
Contact. Quite
Yeah.
a lot, but I didn't know anybody else.
Well, we've had turnover on the board and I've been there 3 years.
So look, I'm involved with scans to that extent, and I'm more than happy to do it. And if you want to be involved with other things, let me know. Yes. No. I did know myself.
No, I'm good.
Sit down.
What? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's a landline. So, where I.
No, she's, I'll fill you in, yes.
Yes. You know.
Alex Bessett, Daniel Briska, Bill Heisen, Eddie Payne, Walter Townsend, Roger Whitley, and Mayor Ronstadt.
Now, if you would join me in.
Okay, item number 2 is the consent calendar, approval of the agenda for tonight. And then in your packet, January 21st, 25, regular session minutes, January 24th, 24. Special session on February 20th, 2024, regular session, March 11th, 2024. Work session, April 8th, 2024, work session. Why are we jumping all over this?
Most recent and then older copies or older minutes catching up on. Starting from the, if we approach both ways eventually, yes.
Couple of minutes, I said recently, particularly March 11th and March 8th.
Might I recommend you amend the motion to table those two sets of minutes?
Bring your motion and we'll take all of those.
So moved.
For a second,
Sorry.
and all in favor?
How many, we have the notes, the minutes from 1837? Yeah.
In an old home back there.
Thank you for the work that y'all are doing to try to get us.
The item 3, public forum. This is the period of time where anyone in the public audience or happens to be on Zoom tonight with anybody.
Yes, we have two guests.
Anybody on Zoom or public in the audience wishes to speak, step forward to the podium and state your name. And tell us what's on your mind. Try to limit it to about 5 minutes if possible.
I'll be shorter. Do you do the Zoom people first? Or is there any people right here?
You got the floor.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Beth Clark. I've met most of you, but I'm the newest president of SCAN. Scottsville Center for Arts and Nature, although I've been with SCAN for almost 3 years as a treasurer, so that's more behind the scenes. I just wanted to take a minute tonight. I'm going to pass these out. We started listing the upcoming events we have from now through June. And they were pretty numerous because we still have a SCAN land, as you know, and we still lease the Victory Hall to be for theater, concerts, and classes. And this Thursday, you all should have gotten an invitation to the grand opening of the new art gallery across the street that was gifted to us by our Angel donor, who actually wanted that for Scottsville, not for SCAN. She wanted an art gallery, and she then thought SCAN would be the obvious choice to run it. So just wanted to let you know what all we're doing. Any questions?
I'll be bringing the ribbon for your cutting on Thursday, so. Terry at the bridal shop brings the scissors, and she has a really nice shop.
Okay.
And we'll see you up there, and everybody's invited to come and take part in the grand opening.
Good. We have 16 local artists who have submitted their work. It's everything from ceramics to paintings, photography. So we're very excited. So it's all local artists. We didn't know if anyone would come to the party, but we are going to have a good turnout. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
The other members of the public who wish to speak. Okay, and we'll close public forum session, and I'm here to introduce it to our number.
Yeah, so I'll just read off my staff report. So attached is a proclamation for International Dark Skies Week, which this year is April 21st to the 28th. Scottsville previously recognized International Dark Skies Week back in 2024. Just from my notes, I want to recognize the collaboration of local stakeholders, which were advocating for the town's participation in International Dark Skies Week. Peggy Cornett, Christine Putman, Carol Carter, and Gareth Hunt from various different local organizations and community members. Just to give a little bit of highlight, per suggestions that I've received starting last year, we've seen a slow but steady kind of movement towards trying to improve some of our local outdoor lighting. So we have a commissioner and board member who's been kind of taking the forefront on looking if there's any revisions that could be done to the zoning code. As your zoning administrator, I see your zoning code is very limited in enforcing outdoor lighting and anything other than signs related to the ARB and then site plans when you're doing a special use permit. But as I've spoken with Garrett Hunt, I've been reaching out to AEP to see if what options they have with changing the timing of our streetlights. They recommended for lights out for birds. It could be an initiative you could do in the spirit of Dark Skies Week. So I'll keep following up with them and see if there's any options about dimming or changing the timing on those streetlights that are controlled by AEP. And then additionally, I've been reaching out most recently to Vienna, Virginia, who have been doing community outreach efforts to actually update their outdoor lighting. So I'm talking to their zoning administrators and see if there's any advice I could bring down from Vienna for us down the road. And then naturally, discussions of the comp plan have also prioritized as part of our environmental stewardship principle, a reduction in outdoor lighting during the evening. So I'm sharing a proclamation that our local stakeholders have advocated for council to consider.
Have you contacted the non-municipal school? Post office?
Yes,
They're gonna do something with those lights.
I'm working on it, but as I said, I have limited options as a zoning administrator.
But I maybe just ask them just to consider it.
Yeah.
They're like.
Oh, I have. I could get into detail later.
We need to use proclamation tonight. The council members here have had the opportunity to read it. She was going on it.
You could read it into the record, but it was shared earlier. And it is on the public record as part of our agenda.
Copies, first of all, I want to call you white stars. White stars in your own right.
Yeah, would you like us just to hear from us?
Say a few words.
Yeah, so we are very appreciative that you guys are taking up the proclamation and that you're taking the time to think about this and think about it as a priority. And I do hope that you will update your, update so that you can actually put some teeth behind these requests. Because it doesn't seem like the requests are going that far. I mean, you can ask people, like just behaviorally, let's turn down the lights, but you can see that only goes so far, unfortunately. And the problem is, for example, we're getting into the spring bird migration, so we've got 80% of birds are migratory, and of those, 70% are nocturnal migrators. And so there's the impact on our natural world, and there's also the impact on human health with all this light. And we're learning more and more about how impactful that is. And I think people just don't appreciate having the light trespass into their windows at night, and the lights are getting brighter and brighter. So we appreciate you recognizing that this is something that needs to be addressed, and I hope that the town of Scottsville will work on getting some teeth into your ordinance so that you can actually enforce. Yeah, thank you. Guys,
The proclamations over in International Dark Skies reads as follows. Whereas night sky is a shared heritage of all human cultures, is an inspiring beauty and many communities living their own light pollution, and they never experience the dark sky of this environmental and health purpose. Whereas the town of Scottsville enforcing dark sky protections and town ordinances is improving the current outdoor lighting ordinances and encouraging residents to reduce excessive light, especially in the historic overlay district. Then the recognition of international dark sky, with appreciation to the advocacy of the Piedmont Dark Skies Coalition, And we're going to be, is proclaiming that we, Scottsville Town Council, do hereby declare the 21st and 28th, 2025 as International Dark Sky Week. We encourage Scottsville residents to become more familiar with the issues that impact dark skies. While at the same time, during the National Wonder Duty, within the coalition of started here in the town of Scottsville. The further resolved, the copy of the proclamation is spread upon the minutes of this meeting of the council of the town of Scottsville. With acknowledgement to the efforts and advocacy of, in no particular order, Lady Cornett, Christine Putnam, Carol Carter, Darwin Hunt. Now, this will be signed today after the meeting by me, as long as the council passes. So, I hear a motion to pass this proclamation celebrating International Dark Skies Week.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second? And any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment about this, that I think I've said this before, as somebody who is appreciative of the night sky. It's an area for me that I have only become aware of the last 3 or 4 years as I start looking at the stars. And I do think as an issue, and I maybe don't, but I think a lot of people really aren't aware, you know, in terms of, I would say the way, first of all, the way God made our bodies to respond in the night, you know, you can see better. I didn't have night vision, you know, do now. It is a complicated thing because there's a balance between safety and science, but there's also the recognition of how it affects animals, and it's something I've been starting to think more about. I don't have an easy answer to it, so I think a proclamation that the town is to start. And as you think about it in reality, I like this particular part. I think is really helpful because it shows you, for citizens out there, it's the part that is giving different ways that lights can be used, and it's showing how an ambient light or a light that's has a source can be very dramatic or can be limited. And this is the kind of thing we do need to think more about, the civilization. The other thing I'll say is see the multiplication of satellites everywhere, and so light pollution. If you look at the charts, you can see, I mean, we're still in a pretty good place to see stars, but that can change over time. So I think one of the things we could do, and maybe y'all can help us with this over time, is just education to the public and resources. There was an exhibit I saw with Smithsonian about a year ago. I had this exhibit in the Natural History Museum right now in Florida Street, but I do think it's an area that we will, as a civilization, need to learn a lot more about in the coming decades. And like I said, I don't have easy answers to it, other than at first recognizing the need and figuring out how do we humans strike a balance, you know, with nature, and it's something that there's a great benefit. The other aspect of it is you lose the magnificence of nature too. You go into the city and you just don't see the stars, or it's gone. I don't know if you all noticed that, but when you're there, it's just dramatically different. So we still have a pretty good view from here, and it's worth thinking about as we go, as how we do that, as we have our businesses. And so thank you all for bringing this to us, and I'm hopeful in future generations that we make wise decisions.
So is there any further discussion?
Do we need to be looking at the ordinances that are starting construction down Page Street, and soon we're gonna get more street lights?
The Page Street, that would have been timed up in the site plan. So that's, so useful thing to think is that whenever you have a site plan in front of you or special use, those are the opportunities to discuss lighting in our current zoning. But to Councilor Grisco's point, Planning Commission has been recently pretty adamant about having language about this. And initially, if you had a revision, an update to your comp plan, then you can have revisions to your zoning code to reflect the new comp plan. And at that point, those intentions in the comp plan would actually bear fruit in the zoning code, in the revisions to the zoning code itself.
It is one of the conditions.
Correct.
Any other discussion? For town administrator, would you call the vote, please?
Yes, Alex Bessett, Daniel Grisco,
Yeah.
Bill Heisen, Eddie Payne,
Yeah.
Walter Townsend, and Roger Whitley.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank
Or,
For the April council meeting, I'll be out of the country, and Mr. Payne, the vice mayor, will be running the show, so he, I'm sure, will announce it on Monday, the 20th. Whatever the time is. That's what we're just celebrating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you,
Thank you.
if, it would be great to have it on social media
Mhm.
and the vehicles in this area too. Anything on it. See.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm gonna send you an email here. You can send me an email. Sorry, I'll send you an email.
You guys have, it says that we're supposed to have an attachment of that proclamation on here, just for our information, but it's not here. Should I get a copy of it?
Yes.
I don't have anything much to add to the report. Up here, almost every day last week, budget things, everything to do, and, I'm here and I went down to the dollhouse to see this, the county was actually hooking up over the sewer lines down there, and it's like we got electric meter on the house, so we got electricity now.
Mhm.
And we hope to speak with Jay, but Jay was out of town, so we were off to see how Mr. Patel and Rocco was doing, and he was out of town, so. Came back down here hoping to see Nick, who was remodeling the restaurant, and he was hit on one, so I know we meet a lot of people. That's it, Tom, you want to do the staff report?
Yeah, so just quick update. I've been kind of trying to brush up on some of my emergency preparedness. Yeah, so DCU, their Wilder School of Public Government and Public Affairs is, I think, how they call it, is holding like a 101, 4 classes on the fundamentals of emergency management. So it's not a certified class, but it hits those basics that are useful for somebody in my position. So I went to the first class with our emergency manager for the county back last Wednesday, the 12th. Beyond that, we had on the 13th, the county environmental services staff for Albemarle hosted a dam safety tabletop exercise in collaboration with DCR. Both agencies are looking into the future, having annual tabletop exercises as an effort to kind of make it easier for private dam owners, which would include us, to fulfill one of the certifications they have with DCR, which is having occasional tabletop exercises. The benefit of that, we got all the staff up there to go through the exercise. But I was being quoted and had discussions with our current consultant that does our dam safety to contract for a tabletop exercise, since DCR was clear at the end of last calendar year that we would need to do one for this calendar year. So it leads to a few $1,000s in savings for next fiscal year. Beyond that, I've been communicating with the mayor, and I'm trying to follow up with Albemarle County about some of the discussions we had. Council and Pruitt had last Monday in regards to our current levy maintenance. And then we'll continue working on Tim Carr and I on opportunities with DCR for some assistance. Beyond that, wanted to thank Greg's here, so he did me a favor that Wednesday. He got some road millings So we'll see if Greg will get some assistance from a volunteer to fill in some of the work we need to get done over on the road going into Van Cleef. And then beyond that, I spoke with Blue Ridge Food Bank following Counselor Heisen's connection they made. So I'll be working on quotes, but they seem pretty adamant to help us fill out those potholes in front of the farmers market. So we'll get one project done probably over the summer. But you could do it during the week and then we'll go around those Saturday events. But they seem pretty happy once I talked to them last Monday. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, and that would be it for Mayor for the staff report.
And I did not mention that I drafted a letter to Supervisor Pruitt based on our conversation last Monday. I've sent it on air to see what his thoughts are. And basically, it states that I've been involved in town affairs for 15 years. I came on board in 2010. County was offering $17,000 a year in support of our levy system. And 15 years later, they're offering $21,000, which is a very small percentage involvement that we now have facing a bill of $70,000 to maintenance costs. And we would, I would say that we are the gateway to Albemarle County from the south, and good impression, you know, everybody got a chance to make a good impression. And we want people to be impressed and know that they're, you know, less than the county is services. So hopefully our Javier has had a chance tomorrow to what I have said, we'll go to Supervisor Pruitt. About this stuff.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think that's important that we try to press the case with the county. I do think it's good that you do that representing us. Javier, I also would say maybe as you see opportunity for us, maybe to press our case as councilors here, because it's important to the citizens that we make sure that the levy is protected. But obviously, as the mayor said, the matching funds or the funds from the county could be better. It'd be good to do what we can do really better.
Alex is not here. Is there anything different than he reported last week for LD?
Nothing new at the moment.
Just doing anything to do with excited for the last week's report on.
Mr. Mayor, the town is always excited, but I don't know anything new from what I was reporting last week. We do have a vacancy on the plan.
And we had asked if Lisa would be here tonight, so we might recognize her over the last several years and heading up to the commission, but she is busy with other things on that, and so we will just see that she is receives a little certificate of appreciation from the town, so here at the future.
Well, just what I mentioned last week with government service, we're looking at the budget and capital improvement plans, doing the pump house, doing the walls. And we looked at maintenance issues too. We passed it down to and just as an aside, anytime you see anything at all about regarding the maintenance, please pass it on to Javier, please pass it on to Jen. Yeah, usually seem to get things done. But I do think there's some priorities really need to be taken care of before we move about for spring. Obviously, not good now business square, good bathrooms open. You know, there's a lot of tourists still coming to town, but they'll really become once the weather gets better. And as far as the parks are in good shape. As far as we still have some bigger projects, the road, which the chief got us some gravel, so that's going to be fixed. Part of the road's going to be fixed. The entrance road, and it's some big holes there. And thank you for getting that, and we're going to get that fixed up. And then there are a few trails that need work. Outside of that, President Lucas, I go through it weekly, twice a week, and, it's being used. People are fishing, people are hiking, and, you're no longer riding or wheels either, thanks to the chief.
Any questions for Mr. Bison? Any, anything? Anything?
Oh, yeah, oh, God.
Anything you want to talk?
I was just talking about the police department, people are doing good things from the community, but also, remind everybody, we all know we'll be looking for another officer. Pretty soon, actually, we're looking down. Have a conversation with Diggins, one conversation we had was, we just got to keep an eye on the impact of construction and traffic. Exceptional on Murray Street, just to see that that's affecting us. Other than that, that's better.
Questions for Mr. Bison? Townsend, I see you. They're looking to solve the issue, right, but we understand these things in a hurry, can you need to bring up anything right now? No. No, I'm still concerned about the food truck and the food truck on the street. Yeah. I drove by there the other day and it's good, I could wait on the sidewalk, and then one day we went out in the road, so someone, we're gonna have to set up the deal, we're gonna have to drive and set up to go from there. And that way, everybody can be on the same page. Not scared of doing the same thing, but I would. The violation of the ADA thing, we will definitely lose every time. Because ADA pretty much lives, it's got every state you have. And so we have to make sure that people can get up and down that sidewalk. I know a lot of areas had several conversations with the children, and I know they'll have no, probably tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Logan.
Nothing there.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 8 on the agenda, and turn this whole section of the 3 items over there, we'll start with item number 8.1.
Yeah, so the first item would be discussion of police salary increases. So I think it might be appropriate for Chief Jenkins and I to have a conversation with council about that. Greg, do you have anything you'd like to add for the salary increases?
Yes.
I think we covered it pretty well last Monday. I don't think Mr. Poundland had an opportunity to hear what it was. But I'm here to answer any questions the council might have. You want me to give you a summary of this?
Yeah, just how much was here.
So the year before last, we, the town and the town police department agreed to enter into an MOU with the crisis intervention team at Region 10. With that, Region 10 reimburses the police department for its officers' hours spent up there at the CTAC each quarter. What we agreed on for that money last year was because the town couldn't pay overtime for contractual overtime assignments or stuff like that. What we did was we put that funding, that it's $13,200, into a line item in the police department's budget for contractual overtime. Now that we have an officer that's leaving us, June, I've been reaching out to different officers to try to find out if they might be interested in a position in the town police department. And our pay is still not competitive with police departments that are around us regionally. When Javier and I started to advertise the position at the 51.5 that we currently pay the officer that's leaving, we immediately learned through the advertising company that we're $4,500 below the average, the regional average. So what my thought was is trying to think out of the box a little bit. How can we up officer salaries without impacting, making such a big impact on the town's budget? And my thought was, if we had this $13,200 that's in this line item for contractual overtime, why not split it between the two full-time officers' positions? Increase that salary, I think it's a $6,600 increase per officer. And then again, as we go through this budget process, hopefully council will, stay what we've been doing at a minimum of a 2, hopefully 3 to 5% increase in officer salaries, which will keep us competitive each year and hopefully keep our salaries competitive each year. Last year when we were doing our budget process, we don't have the luxury of a public safety pay scale. We can't afford something like that. So it's really incumbent upon us to try to make sure our salaries are competitive regionally by a minimum of a 2. I think last year maybe council decided it was probably at a minimum of a 3% increase, but I can't remember specifically. Do you?
I think it was 3.
I think it was 3, but no lower than 2. In the public safety pay scale, that's what at a minimum, that's a 2% increase every year for every employee that's in the pay scale. So that's kind of why when I proposed it to council last year during budget process, that we do it at least at 2%, so we can try to stay competitive when we don't get as far behind as we have been before we hired our last officer. So my proposal to council would be allowing me to take this $6,600 that we have in this revenue line item for contractual overtime, divide it between the 2 officers' salaries, increase that salary for each police officer now. And then I'll go ahead and post the advertisement for the vacant position. It's hopefully we can get a certified officer to fill the position if we can increase the salary. I know we just increased it last year, but we've already gotten that much behind again.
Well, that was my next question too, because chief was, last year we voted on a $5,000 increase.
Yes, sir.
And that's all it took to get an officer that was interested. Sadly, we thought to stay with us as long as we'd like for him to. And in a year's time, now you're projecting $6,600 split. That'll get you over the average, or right at the average.
Average.
So
It's going to put us, let's say the officer that's leaving is making $51,500. The $6,600 to that salary will bring us in at $58,100. So, I would say that, we would cap that salary at that $58,100 right now, for sure. So maybe a starting salary of, I think when I looked at the advertising, maybe it's $55,000 to $58,100, right? Depending on the experience. But give me the ability to be able to at least have the flexibility to at least bring the salary to someone that might have 5+ years on in another department, that be able to be competitive with the salary they might be making in another department. I know this is true because I've talked to a number of officers that are with other departments right now, and they've been with the department 6 to 7 years, and they're making at that $60,000 plus starting point. I'm hopeful that increasing the salaries will allow us the ability to be able to certify. But I don't know. The police academy starts July 1st, the first week in July. So after the July 4th events, so it would start that July 4th starts. That's on a Friday, so the academy will start that following Monday. It's 20 weeks to send an officer to the academy for sure.
So if we get one, an officer's already qualified, certified, training, that your partner requires, that still will be cheaper than hiring someone off the street and turning them into a police officer.
Well, It's 20 weeks at the police academy. We pay $720 a year for each officer to enroll to the academy to train. But the caveat is while the officers are at the academy, we're paying their salary. So whatever the salary would be, let's say 51.5, divide that between the 26 weeks. We pay that for 20 weeks plus food while we're over there. So it's going to be pretty complicated.
I would go to, I think a good idea to you split the money between the two options you have. Is there still a desire for, volunteer police officers for people to come in here and get experience and whatsoever? If a person wanted to be a volunteer officer, you know, non-paying them, who comes the cost of the training? Does the state offer any type of program to pay for the training for a person who wants to be a volunteer officer? No.
Right now, we have 5 auxiliary officers in our department.
Is that included under the, you said we pay 720? Do those 5 volunteer officers, do they get that 720 also to?
So the
For the
academy,
training for you?
the academy's got that broken down. Auxiliary officers are trained differently than full-time police officers like myself, the sergeant, and the other 2 officers. They have to do the in-service and they are required to meet the DCGS anchors. But that training can be done in-house. It can be done by me or one of the officers. They don't have to go to the academy. So the academy breaks down 1 to 10 auxiliary officers per year is $720. So I can have up to 10 auxiliary officers and it still costs us $720 to have all 10 of them trained. Gives them access to the online training, the in-service credit hours, all of that type of stuff. And then when you go over 10, it goes up. So that's how they distinguish the auxiliary officers. So for the 5 officers that we have as auxiliaries, we're paying $720 for all 5. Up to 10.
You know, I don't think we're, compete on pay scale with, Charleston, I just think it's unreasonable, we just can't afford that much police. But I do think that what's really worked well for us is having retired policemen and kind of letting them know this is, it's not as dangerous and it's not as, it's safer to be in this town and it's a lot, you know, we get the community and the quality of the work is much better. I think selling, I don't know if you could sell that to many, but I really don't think we need to get somebody who's new and trained and be without a policeman for 5 weeks. And then they come here and then they see better places to go later, and then they stay a year or 2 and then they move on. So we can get retired. I don't know if you word of mouth or whatever, but I think that's the way to go. That's always worked really well with us here, and let them know that this is a great place to work. You know, we've never had really much experience or skilled people who work in Scottsville and just don't get that. One of the things
We
it's really hard.
We haven't had experienced officers.
No, I'm talking about staff. No, that's staff in general. You know, we make the best of what we can and they do it on the job. But I think at least when we have, you know, there's standards, you gotta have qualifications and certifications. But I just feel like maybe a retired person or somebody who's worked in the field for a while might want to take a step down and you know, work here.
Chief, just I will say this, that, and that's this more than new town councilors, one of the things, so I've been on council for many years. We have the best police chief we've ever had, and chief, the confidence that we have in you is because you know the job, so I, as we've talked about before, right now, there are many vacancies around the country. This is a job that there's more needs that can be filled. And so I guess I would say maybe it's like disagreeing with what you just said would be chief needs to be creating your accounting so that you can come up and match some of those numbers and the best that you can to give us quality people. And I know that you know people, your connections fact, we thank Mr. Mayor, thank you for your connections that got the chief in the first place, but all that to say, chief, do what you gotta do so that you can find somebody who's the highest caliber, and we know that we have to do what we have to do just to give you the finance. It's just the reality of the world out there, and you have found retired people, or you found whoever you could find. And so we'll pray that you find somebody again, but keep us aware of the needs that you have to do that. And I think that's creative in terms of what you're doing, how you're using the money that's coming one way to help it to go through salaries.
So, and thank you for saying that, all of you all. I will tell you, our police department is viewed by our community and other police departments that neighbor us in a completely different light today than it has been in the past. I would say that I do know a lot of police officers. I've talked to a lot of people ready to retire. And once they retire, they're out. I had a few years left in my fuel tank to give to the town. Mr. Heisen, I get paid part-time work and I work full-time. I'm down here all the time. And this town's growing, the police department's growing. It's got to grow with the town. If the town expects to have, and I think I've said this once before, and I'll say it in an open meeting, the town has to stop settling for second best when it comes to public safety. Has to. The town relies on its police department to give a quality service. And when these new homes and these new residents come into this town, they're going to expect quality service. I don't know if upping the salary is going to give me the ability to be able to hire a certified officer or not. I'm not sure. But I can tell you from what I've heard, and everyone that I know and I've talked to try to recruit to this position has told me the same thing. You don't pay them. And they're not going to leave a department that's paying them 60 plus, and we're paying them 51.5. It's not going to happen. I'm not sure what the answer is. I have tried to be creative, and we talk about the safety part of it. The town of Scottsville has its issues in the town of Scottsville as well. I would argue that the Bridgewater Police Department, who I know the chief over there, had a security officer and a police officer shot on the campus 2 years ago. Wintergreen officer responds to a domestic call for service and gets shot and killed. That person was just sentenced just a couple of weeks ago, a week or two ago. It doesn't matter if our town's safe, people feel safe. It takes one bad apple, one bad character to come through the town and make a bad day worse by taking an officer's life. You can never predict, no matter how safe a community is, what someone's going to do when they're respond to a domestic. They get out on a traffic stop. I wish we could say, yeah, you come to Scottsville, you never stand a chance of getting killed. But the reality is anytime you have dealings with domestics, alarms, anything that we deal with, I mean, it could go sideways in the blink of an eye and someone loses their life. My task has been to try to hire someone that will fit into this community, fit in our police department, and treat our residents and our visitors with dignity and respect. I'm not saying that you can't get a brand new officer, but they're qualities. I've got 2 of them now that are fairly brand new, but they're older people. These 2 men have only been on the job 3.5, 3 years, you know, but they're not trying to make a name for themselves in the town of Scottsville. They come here and they treat our residents and our community very well. And I think that's very obvious in the feedback that I get, and I believe council gets, in the way our officers police this town and how we treat people. I'm not going to just hire anyone to fill that position just to have a vacancy filled. I don't think it's worth it to our residents or our community. I'll go without a police officer before I just put anybody in that position. I can assure you that. We'll just make the best of what we got. But I do feel that I need that flexibility to be able to offer more money to people. We're just not going to get forward. That's just the way it is.
Javier.
Hmm?
Says this 13,000 we're talking about is the listeners budget. Not talk about extras budget right now. Is there a way that we can go ahead and make that decision to split that 13? So the chief will have the talking point.
The nuance is that we have 13 budgeted for this year. And then we expect to have the same amount of collaboration with Region 10 next year. So as I said in my staff summary, it's a moving within a department. So you're just shifting line items, which would be a reasonable action by an appointee within their departments to adjust that way. But it's salary, so it's a higher consideration that merits a discussion with council. So
We have authorized the chief that, or we have the ability as the head of the department to do it.
If- I would, if I were in his shoes, I would ask for some kind of motion in support of that action. Just so there's clarity also on that.
Well, that 13,000 is earmarked to any expenses right now. It's just-
No, it's the OT.
Yeah.
Would it be prorated over the remainder of the budget year?
We haven't been expensing that line item too.
Right, because you paid it to the officers. Prorated over the course. Probably that breaks down into $500 a month. Would it be $500 per month for the remainder of the year, and then you still have some money left over with 13,000?
Yes, this year, if we don't go
So you
over,
wouldn't even spend the whole 13,000 this year if you prorated it. That's how you're doing it, okay?
exactly.
So you wouldn't use the whole 13,000,
Not from the issues.
but you could use it as a talking point when you go to hire an officer.
So if council approves this idea, tomorrow I'll start working with the town administrator and we'll advertise the position. With 58.1 being the maximum at that starting salary. In hopes that over the years, we continue to grow those positions with that. COLA adjustment, is that what you call them, COLA adjustment?
Yeah, cost of living adjustment.
Adjustments as we move up. We've just really been trying to struggle to keep up. Mr. Heisen, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I can assure you that this is a police officer's market.
Yeah.
Not a job market.
And,
Officers, I mean, they could go any place in Virginia.
because there's demand.
There's the demand and there's the money. Albemarle just started with a $3,000 sign-on bonus, along with their pay scale. So it's very difficult for small communities to keep up with these salary increases.
You mentioned, we talked before about the maybe the town council really needs to have a special meeting about really looking at police and see how much police we can afford. We're going to deal with this, it seems like we're dealing with this every year. And, maybe we do need some sort of tax that can help this, but the safety, public safety is so important. And I do think it's a conversation that we keep on. I want to do as much as possible. You want me to say, but we're lucky to have you, like you said, with left. That we got a plan for circumstances that beyond our control sometimes, and police and stuff. Well, let me ask you real quick. When do you need this police person chief?
I should have advertised it last week,
When do you need it by? Is it open?
June the 6th.
June the 6th, okay,
It's his last day.
okay.
So when I can't bring the person on before June the 7th. Because the position's not vacant, but what I can do in the interim is advertise interviews like we did some of the last time, pick a candidate, do backgrounds, polygraph, psychological exams on the candidate or candidates that we feel like will meet that department's requirements to move them on in that process. It's going to be a 4 or 5 month process.
And how long do you think you put advertising for,
I don't know. I'm hoping that we can advertise tomorrow. We've got to advertise tomorrow at whatever salary we decide to go with. We just have to get the position out there and advertise it to see what we do. But the last time we advertised it for 30 days. So with that being said, if we advertise it for 30 days, that puts it to mid-April, right? Then we take that pool of candidates and narrow it down, if we have any, narrow it down to one or two candidates to be able to interview, put through background. Like I said, polygraph for full-time positions for sure. We got very lucky the last time because it was a pretty much lateral transfer from one police department that we work with all the time, that we were able to get copies of the polygraphs. We were able to get copies of the psychological. Everything had already been done and the officer was still on the job. Right, so there was nothing missed. But this one, unless we get lucky and the same thing happened, we're gonna have to polygraph, we're gonna have to do the psychological, we're gonna have to go through the whole works and make sure that we're getting the right person for the job.
And then it was, 30 days after we voted on the salary increase.
So after you all voted on that salary, if some members on this council helped us interview the last pool of officers, and all 5 of them that we decided to move further, they were all non-certified. Every one of them would have had to have gone through that whole process, would have had, any one of the 5 would have had to have gone to the police academy. I'm not saying going to the police academy, I know we've never done it, and I know it's different, right? But, you know, a brand new officer, you know, you bring a new person in, you get to train them how you want to train them, you know? An older officer has maybe picked up some bad habits along the way. But you never know, right? And I think Dan and Mr. Griggs, you know, you bring a new person on, and after 2 or 3 years, you're doing this whole song and dance again. You know, when I worked at Albemarle, I worked in the recruitment department there. I was in charge of it. And, you know, in the beginning, we're talking 10, 15 years ago, we were talking, if we got 5 years out of an officer, we got our money's worth, right? Then it went to 3 years. And that wasn't so long ago. And then before I retired and come here, it was 2 years. If you could keep a police officer coming out of the academy for 2 years, you got your money's worth. That's how bad it is. So I'm not sure what the answers are. I don't have them. I just know that the people that I've been talking to and trying to recruit for this position have told me you don't pay more. What's it gonna take? 60 plus? We're not gonna be able to do 60. I can get you maybe close. And some have already told me, yeah, it's not good.
So we need a motion to allow chief to do what he needs to do.
If it's the council's desire. Yeah, the motion would be to approve current line item for 13,200 for CTAC reimbursement and overtime to be used for full-time police officer salaries.
Just the mayor, so. Say exactly what I said.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Discussion, vote please.
Alex Bessett, Daniel Grisco, Bill Heisen, Eddie Payne,
Yes.
Walter Townsend,
Yeah.
Roger Whitley.
Yes.
Okay, man.
While you have the chair, now let's go to number 2, discussion of DCRS.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As council remembers, and Mr. Townsend, we have a DCGS has an equipment grant that we've seemed to be taking advantage of more and more and more. Just so you have an idea, our new message board, Trone Trail, and Cones have all been bought off of these type of grants, equipment grants. One was just advertised, due date of April 8th. The department, in thinking about some of the things that we could benefit from, the town could benefit from, the police department could benefit from. We've been talking for the last 2 years about a new police officer's car computer to be able to work off of. We've been trying to raise the funds to be able to get the computer. But this is an opportunity for us to apply for this grant and potentially get the computer. I also thought maybe the police department might benefit from 4 new automated defibrillators, external defibrillators, AEDs. Each AED, if awarded the grant, would be put into the police department's patrol cars, and we would have them in the field. Each one of our officers have now been trained in first aid, CPR, and AED. It's just a matter of approved. It's a 75-25 match. And I put the numbers in here for you all. 75-25 match. The cost of the new computer is $4,500 with the docking station, and the AEDs are right at $1,800. For a total of $7,200. I think that number. I think the total grant was 1,100 and some change.
That's what I remember from last time.
And the town would, out of the town, that 7,200 would be the grant amount, and the town's commitment with the 25 match would be $2,925 for the new computer and for new AEDs. So I was just wondering if council felt that it would be beneficial to the town to be able to apply for the grant. If the council approves it, I'll go ahead and submit the grant on behalf of the town, and we'll go from there. We'll do just like we're just getting ready to finish up the one that we got the message board and stuff off of.
Is this gonna be stuff that Scottsville only, or y'all still working with Alamo County TV for things?
Well, this will all be just for the town.
So y'all, the keyboard, what we linked up with, Alamo County Police Department, what about for those, like, no, yes, Alamo County.
Chief, why do we need a new computer?
Well, the old one that we have, so we've got 4 computers, is that right? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, mine, Brad's, Paul's, and Gary's, and the 5th one, the council will remember back last year. My computer that I work off of every day went down. Fortunately, at that time, we had just gotten that computer with the new car that we had gotten with for Officer Wood. So that computer hadn't been issued out to the field to the officer yet. So I was able to utilize that one, that hard drive, into my old computer, send the old hard drive and computer back, and the motherboard actually went bad in that one. So they had it back to us within 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks. But as it stands right now, if we have a computer go down, we're out of business. We don't have a backup computer, and this one will serve as a backup computer should we have a computer failure. And it's possible, anything can happen with this.
Electronics, you have a lifetime.
They recommend every 5 to 10 years on a computer. Where I come from, they started to cycle those computers out after the 5th year. Purchase a new one, and then when that one failed, you could always cycle your new one in, right? I mean, we might get 6 out of one of them or 7, but you never know. That one, fortunately, was still under warranty that went bad. We sent it back, had it repaired, and they sent it back to us, and it's been fine. Hopefully, when we get our new vehicle order, we'll get another computer in that car. So we'll start to be able to, part of our CIP, replacing those computers every 5th year. With this grant, will give us the ability to have a newer one, cycle one older one out if we have to, right? We get the new car, it'll come with a new computer in the truck. So we're leveraging these grants to help us with our capital improvements and cycling some of these older computers out of the inventory and keeping the new equipment in inventory in case there is a failure.
Yeah,
We need a motion to authorize the chief to.
Yeah. so for clarity, what we're discussing is a grant that would apply to the 25-26 budget. But it is appropriate to have a motion that would authorize the chief of police to start the grant solicitation this fiscal year.
Your motion.
Um,
You bet.
okay, to authorize.
Allowing the chief to apply for the grant.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Second, okay, any further discussion on this?
Thank you, Chief, for your creative.
Out here? Yes, sir.
Alex Bessa, Daniel Grisco,
Yes.
Bill Heisen, Eddie Payne,
Yeah.
Walter Townsend,
Yeah.
Roger Whitley.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council. I certainly appreciate the time this evening.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Let's go right back up to the
Yeah, so fresh off the press, on the back of your packet is a summary of capital maintenance estimates that I've kind of put together. What you could do is, it's easy to summarize, it's always kind of a moving target with stuff. But what I wanted to start off is just talking about the farmer's market. I'll hit the broad strokes, you've kind of heard it before. But for Sir Speedy, they gave us a quote for a sign for $600 that would include installation. My recommendation, and I've discussed it previously with Counselor Heisen, is for us to move forward on that quote, so I could try to get something scheduled before the opening of the farmer's market mid next month. Beyond that, as I reported, and I included 2 quotes, our pavilion has 6 fans and 22 lights. I received 2 quotes, so we're gonna get a little bit more on paper than others. But you can see that I think the most competitive quote, which I would expect other quotes in that cohort to come around there, local, is still really out of our price range for what we're budgeted for this year. So to the short point between cost of buying fans and cost of buying lights, and then also just getting the work done, I might recommend that I just move forward with trying to scope down into our budget. I already talked to one of the 2 contractors to ask for something a little bit scoped down. And then maybe just reduce the amount of repairs we did. It's not perfect because I would have liked to do them completely in uniformity and then just have some cost efficiency, especially if you're renting. But this is kind of the path for, at least for the farmer's market, to stay within budget, which is of utmost importance. We can stop on that, or I can hop into Canal Bay. So
Question about the sign, so what's the wording of the other side?
it's going to be the same as the previous sign that fell down from us. So farmer's market, the one that's up by the shed.
Is it Scottsville?
I think it's Scottsville. But we can change that
I
before.
think it should note that it's Scottsville, so people know where they are. You know, where they are, a lot of people know. This be used year to year.
We would put it up permanently in the same spot of use. Yeah. They would install it. It isn't made out of metal. The issue with the metal starts shearing over and over. I think it just becomes the same as other things we have outdoors.
There's a warranty.
I need to check on the warrant. It's probably just a year, but I wouldn't want to be quoted on that, so I can check. But I would recommend putting something up. We budgeted really low, 250. That's why I brought it up to council, just to buy it, try to be fiscally prudent on that. But I think it would be a good faith gesture also to our farmers market community to get that up, in addition to the potholes that we're gonna fix.
So this is put on the actual structure.
Because we had a previous one made out of metal. that sheared off and broke off. It's up by the shed in Van Cleef right now. So we're just kind of restoring it back to previous aesthetic, I would say, for the farmer's market.
So that's the reason we're getting a banner type, so you have wind resistance.
Yes, because that metal one, despite it being recommended to the previous administrator immediately, I think it lasted maybe a year and a half or something. And it sheared up, and then I had continued discussion with them about, hey, what would be the most reliable and the safest? And they said I would move away from that with wind slits. But then again, it's a material that will still get old over years, but I would consider it as an eventual maintenance task. You'd have to do the farmer's market the same as anything else.
Well, you know, if the flags are a representation of the condition down there, then it's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, change it out occasionally, as they say. The big disappointment is the lights and fans coming in really high. I think the fans themselves and the lights are relatively affordable. And they're kind of following the recommendations I've gotten from two different electricians, but the work itself. So it might just be, what I would recommend is trying to scope it down, and then I try to find something that is reasonable, but within the budget, to kind of try to keep this project moving forward. Again, you could do it during a week if we have to do it during the beginning of the season. Any of this work, and then get it done before that Saturday that we have attendance. I'll move on to Canal Basin. So for Canal Basin, last week, Bill was helping me out. They went out of business. The people who used to make our hogsheads. So I've been talking to a local carpenter to see if he could do repairs on one of them. What I would want to do is repair one of them. Especially because I'm waiting on the quote for the displays, and then reposition them under the pavilion. It's not clear to me why we have them out for the elements. But I'll have to come back to you with estimates on that. Display for Canal Basin, we should be much more efficient. We're using the original contractor that put in the infographics. So I was talking to them today again about getting quotes on that. But what I might advise is moving forward with the signs and moving forward with the work I need to do on the potholes, and then seeing what I can do with the fans more sooner, and the lights, and then keep working on those hogshead barrels and the displays, and then maybe in April I'll follow up with you guys to keep doing that. I'm very interested in finishing that work, so we finish up that capital expense this year.
We need a lot of lights, so we don't use the lights so much, except it's usually during the daylight. I know we need some fans that keeps the bugs away and all that kind of stuff. We need all the lights, when do we use it at night?
I'm approaching it from a different aspect where I'm having blades fall off and lights come down. So it's more of a liability issue on my side that I was really interested in just getting those redone.
Baptist Church has, and I saw has been coming out over 2 to 3 months.
Mhm.
That's gonna be in the evening.
Yeah.
So it does get used.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do
Just
it.
that one example, off the top of my head, it's coming up a month.
You're exactly right. They do that every year.
Yeah.
They bring in extra lighting, but they still use our lighting. And then we'll have an occasional wedding or something. And they'll use the lights for it.
Yeah.
And Rogers is going to get this events, committee Robbins.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want lights.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can think of it with that while being fiscally prudent, it'd be to like scope it down. But the thing that might bug me, it's like, you're not gonna be able to match those lights perfectly. And they're already done that way. Some of them are gray, some of them are black. Because we were kind of switching out those pennant lights. But I really want to get the fans done because those are becoming a safety issue.
You get the other folks, or just the only guy?
These are the ones I have on hand. Yeah. Two.
Oh,
Yeah. Land.
oh, okay.
So I left a note that I was asking right now for something a little bit more standardized, I'll put it that way.
Do we need any action from council tomorrow?
Could I move forward with the sign for Sir Speedy? That's the one I'm really interested in. And then if I'm able to scope down, could I move forward with getting fans or lights replaced? But those would be the two. And then I'll follow up with the Hogshead and display next month with you guys.
make sure they understand, Kathy, when we got that new banner of all the happenings and stuff.
Yeah, poor James, it fell down, he put it back up, it fell down again. Yeah, finally he just, he put it just on a little island part, across from the market. Cause he just couldn't get it to stay up, so.
And a fabric banner lasts longer than the other.
If there's movement with the right wind slits, that metal is not gonna last, just the way it's set up. If you had it flush against a wall, maybe, but, just the way the pavilion's made. So that was a big consideration. The whole conversation I had with them was about the failure of the last one and what could we do to add a little bit more longevity to it. Yes.
Outside, with Scottsville.
And the light?
Second.
Voice vote would be sufficient?
The motion is for you,
Yeah.
seconded and discussed.
Alex Bassett. Daniel Grisco,
Yes.
Bill Heisen, Eddie Payne,
Yes.
Walter Townsend, Roger Whitley.
Yes.
So, anything else on anybody's mind?
Not just the lights, but across the street from this building, I think it would be good to know what could be on this, on the sidewalks, because they have this Barbie thing there, and they got little desks and trash cans, and there's some other places in town, that just have, things on the sidewalk that are not very attractive. And I don't know, where we could talk about that, or you just have to tell the people about that, but I think that's nice.
Read the sign of ordinance, your ordinance book, it says that, the only thing that really impresses us is you have to keep the sidewalk in front of your business clear. It also it limits the size space like the beaches, you can't have over 50% of the sidewalk, because 50% taken.
For like tables.
Or eating place. So it's a good ordinance.
Yeah.
And we need to go back to all of it.
That would be good, so, yeah.
Let me follow up on that for you, Mr. Heisen.
I mean, this for Mr. Neighbors is very thoughtful when it comes to the town and that box he has out there that people take pictures in. He regularly, after the event in the town, gives the museum. Last time it was $100, and he collected any donations there for the museum. So he doesn't gain anything off of it. He uses it.
But I don't think it should be a program.
Yeah, if it come out,
But there's a lot of photo there too. I think there's some photo on the street too, which is good. I think, chairs and tables are really good to have. Sometimes even the plant store has a whole posted out there, and I think it's just something that they all need to know.
Let's everybody study the sidewalk ordinance and your ordinance, right? And all those that talk about, we need to change it. Motion to adjourn. Second. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you.
Take care. Hope you feel better soon. Please. Take care.
No. You don't drink soda,
Take care of yourself.